Welcome to Celebration Generosity. I'm Dave Ferguson, and this is my brother John, and we're the founding pastors of Community Christian Church. And it's hard to believe, but this year marks 25 years of helping people find their way back to God. The two of us, along with my wife Sue and a few friends from college, we started Community in a high school cafeteria in Naperville back in 1989. And every year, God has blessed this church, and He's allowed us to make a difference in the lives of more and more and more people. Till today, we're reaching thousands of people all across Chicagoland.
Over these 25 years, we've made some changes. We started out with one location, and now we have 13. The style of music has changed, that's for sure. Back in the day, I taught wearing a suit and tie. Now, not so much. So many things have changed, but one thing remains the same. Community is committed to helping people find their way back to God.
So today, we're wrapping up a series, Love Can, and it's been a great series. Every week, we've been discovering the many things that love can do. Love can rescue our relationships. Love can overcome our circumstances. Love can shape our purpose. But you know something else love can do? Love has the power to change the world. Love can. Love can reach people who are far from God. Love can restore God's dream for communities in need. And love can reproduce the Jesus mission in others. Love can change the world, and that's exactly what Celebration Generosity is all about.
Today marks the 7th year in a row that we've taken one weekend across all of Community's locations and devoted it completely to generosity. Every week we take up an offering that furthers the mission of Jesus here at Community. But today is the beginning of a brand new fiscal year. So as a bold statement of generosity, we will take up an offering and give it to all 4 teams of Celebration Generosity. Every last cent that is collected this weekend will be given away. You know, over the past 6 years, that's totaled almost $3 million. $3 million. I mean, that's world-changing stuff. But that's what love can do.
Now, before we go any further, we want to give you a glimpse of how Celebration Generosity is giving hope to children in unthinkable circumstances, like through our partnership with Compassion International and our Haiti team. What we also want to do is share a story with you from our Restore community team. This team is committed to bringing hope to under-resourced neighborhoods in our own backyards through ministries like Community 412 and the Friends of Swift. This is how love can change the world.
In February, I traveled to the country of Haiti with 20 amazing people to visit this brand new project that was brought online in our partnership with Compassion International. The funds that were used to fund this brand new project actually came from last year's Celebration Generosity. And this new project was this amazing work planned in this extreme poverty type of situation to serve 200 beautiful children. And because of this project, they now have access to food, to education, to health care, and also to spiritual formation opportunities. And so while we were there, we met some of the church leadership, we visited some of the Compassion staff, as well as we met these 200 beautiful children, all of which who have sponsors right here at Community. My wife and I decided that we would sponsor 2 of these Haitian children, one of which his name was Reggie, he's 4 years old, and the other is Solon, who's 7 years old. And we chose these 2 boys because it mirrors the ages of our 2 boys. Now, while I was in Haiti in February, I had the opportunity of meeting my 2 sponsored children. It was such an amazing day to get to laugh with these kids and to meet them and to hug on them. We played soccer together, we swam together. I mean, it was just such an amazing, memorable experience for me personally. But not only did I get to meet Reggie and Solon, I actually got to meet Reggie's mom and Solon's dad as well. And I had some incredible conversations with both of them. But I remember one conversation in particular I had with Reggie's mom where I just asked her, what's the impact been like with Reggie being a part of this Compassion project? Now, understand the Compassion project at that time had only been online for about 3 months. She said, Compassion does what they say that they would do. And I was kind of taken back by that. I was surprised by that answer, and so I kind of pressed in a little bit more and I said, has that not always been your experience? She said, no, not at all. She said, lots of people come to our country and they take pictures of our children in order to raise money, but the money never actually goes to benefit our children. She said, Compassion's been very different because they told me that my child would get food and he gets fed. They told me that he would get an education and he gets to go to school every day. They told me that he'd have access to health care, and a couple of times that we've needed it, that's been there for him. They told me that he had an American sponsor. and here you are. And so I talked to her a little bit more about that, and I noticed that she didn't talk about the spiritual formation aspect. And so I asked her, I said, "Are you a Christian?" She said, "I'm not yet, but because of compassion, I'm becoming one." And it's amazing, in just a few short months, the impact that compassion is having on the life of this child, but not just the child, the impact they're having in the whole life of the family. One of the questions that I had when I went to Haiti was, what's the long-term impact of compassion on somebody's life? I mean, you can see the immediate impact, but what takes place 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Does their work really break the cycle of poverty in somebody's life? One of the last days that we were there, we had the chance to meet up with 3 students that were all probably between the ages of 21 and 23 years old, all of which grew up in the Compassion program and all of which were now a part of some sort of collegiate experience. They were some of the brightest, most focused, committed, Christ-centered individuals that I have ever met. I mean, these were young people that I fully believe will change the world. It was this amazing opportunity to see the impact, not only that it was taking place in their life, because certainly the cycle of poverty had been broken in their own experience, but to also see their commitment to continue to break that cycle on behalf of all those that they would reach and touch. It kind of helped me come to this realization that if you want to change the world, the best way to do it is to invest in the life of a child. Through the work of this year's Celebration Generosity, our plan is to start 2 new projects in the country of Haiti. And that means 400 additional children will have access to food, to health care, to education, as well as to spiritual formation opportunities. And every one of these 400 children will find a sponsor right here at Community. And so I would encourage you, I'd even challenge you to give to the great work that God is doing in Haiti through Compassion International.
The Restore Community team unites people to restore communities right here in our own backyard, all across Chicagoland. We do that because we believe that only by empowering the poor and the marginalized and breaking down barriers of race and culture and economic status can we truly restore God's dream for our neighborhoods and for our world. This year, our campuses have identified several unique ministries to support through your generosity. These include Community 412 in East Aurora and Joliet, and Friends of Swift and Gateway to Learning, both in Chicago. There are so many amazing things happening in all of these ministries. I wish I could tell you about each of them, but your campus pastor is going to give you the details of your Restore Community team. But before that happens, I want to introduce Liz Wright to you. Liz is a leader at our Chicago Edgewater campus, and she's going to tell you about some of the great things going on with Friends of Swift Elementary.
My name is Liz Wright, and my husband and I have been a part of Community Edgewater for 2 years now. Our campus meets at Swift Elementary, located on the north side of Chicago. When I first walked into Swift, the first thing I noticed was all of these flags lining the hallways. It was really amazing because they weren't just decoration. Each flag represented a country of origin for a student at the school. With 50 countries represented and over 65 languages spoken, Swift is sort of like the United Nations of elementary schools. Also, Swift is a fine arts school with curriculum dedicated to music, art, dance, which really resonates with me because I was a band geek for most of my life and really needed art inside of my life, especially my education. Although Swift is this beautiful and wonderful school full of diversity and art, it also faces many challenges. Swift is located inside of a neighborhood nicknamed Arson Alley, which doesn't give it the best reputation. Many parents inside the neighborhood have opted to send their students out of the district, which prevents Swift from having opportunities and resources from CPS that would help them to hire more teachers. In addition, parents also feel like it's not their place to get involved inside their students' school life. They come from cultures where parents parent and teachers teach, and those two worlds never meet. Parents also sometimes struggle to make ends meet, and so some of them are working 2 jobs at a time, making it difficult for them to be involved in their students' life. When parents do attend these performances, a lot of times they're sitting inside of an old auditorium that's 100 years old with the original seats, and the students are performing on old, outdated audiovisual equipment that just really doesn't do justice to their performance. Our campus pastors, Rich and Dory Gorman, had the idea to really take on these challenges. They noticed that other schools in the area had organizations built around the community really coming together for the school and creating funds and just opportunities for awareness, and they wanted to do that same thing for Swift. And that's how Friends of Swift was born. I was really drawn in by their passion to help the school and felt like that's where God was calling me. I came to Chicago to start work at Google, which was my dream job and was amazing, but at times I felt like I just had a disconnect with my work life and my home life and my community. Where I grew up, the school was the community. Everything was kind of centered around the high school, the middle school, all the kids there, and you just kind of knew everyone through that. Coming to Chicago, you get into a neighborhood and you really don't know people around you. And I wanted to be connected, and I wanted to use the skills that I had from work inside of my community. We started small last year. We did a couple fundraisers at some neighborhood festivals, and then we had a cleanup around Swift. But things really didn't start to kick off until my small group adopted Swift. We made that our sole mission, which was great because we could focus on one thing and we were all really passionate about Swift. We kicked off a movie night every month at Swift, which brought together people from the neighborhood, people from the school, all into one place, sitting down and watching movies. Also, we set up cast parties for the students who were inside of our spring musical. And after that, we had one teacher who just broke down into tears. She couldn't believe that we would pour so much into these students. A lot of parents weren't able to make it that night, and so for us to say you are loved through this event just touched her so much. We're so excited by all the ways that God has blessed us here at Friends of Swift. So far, we've raised over $15,000, which is just amazing. We're building connections with parents, we're building bridges between us and the community, and it's not just where we meet on Sundays anymore. We are Swift. Whenever parents aren't able to make it to events, we're there. Whenever teachers need help in the classroom, we're there. We are Friends of Swift, and we're so excited to be part of the Restore community team.
My name is Eileen Connors, and I've been part of community for 21 years. I was born in a small rural town in the Philippines, just about 30 minutes away from San Pablo City, the site of Frontline Ministries. And having lived here in the United States for all these years, I've always just wanted to go back and help. I would see all these images of children rummaging through the garbage, living out in the streets, families living in dump sites. And I couldn't help but think that that could have been me. I went on a mission trip this summer with my 17-year-old son, Cameron, and I wanted him to come with me because I wanted him to see from where I came, and we wanted to go there and help. And just a week prior, Frontline, the campsite was hit by a hurricane, and the eye of the storm hit the campsite. So we were fully expecting to go there and restore buildings, but when we got there, we realized that they had done a lot of the work already in preparation for us being there so that we can get there and focus on other ministries. Ministries like going to Tacloban, which was the town that was hit by last November's hurricane, and it was damaged so severely. So we were able to go there and spend time with those people there. We were also able to visit the dump sites and do some feedings in the local communities. And we were able to reach out and do a lot more things than we thought we were going to be able to. One of my favorite songs that we sing at church is a song called Hosanna. Especially this summer on the mission trip, there was a specific line that really hit home, and that's the line that says, "Break my heart for what breaks yours." Truly, I was seeing the heart of God. I saw what was breaking his heart. And I saw it in my son too. I saw that his heart was breaking for the Filipino people, for these kids of Frontline Ministries. It was so neat to see him interacting with the children, playing and laughing, and just loving on them. Towards the end of the trip, we were able to kind of decompress and talk about some of the things that we had seen, and through tears, both of us, we talked about his future and what that meant. He resolved to do something more for the people of the Philippines. He loved on these kids so much that he wants to go back. He promised them that he was going to go back next year, and he told me that his desire is to major in international business when he goes off to college next year. And he's going to use that education and that degree to go back to the Philippines, live in the Philippines, and help these people, my people. One last story I'd like to share with you is the experience that I had with a little girl named Rose May. When I first met Rose May, she was a little shy, but as the week progressed, you can just see that she was full of life. She was happy, she was well cared for, she was healthy. We laughed, we played, we jumped roped, we did selfies, and even in that last day as we said goodbye, we cried a little bit and as we hugged each other. And I later find out that this very same girl is the girl that was highlighted in last year's Celebration Generosity. This was the little girl who at 10 years old was taking care of her 6-month-old baby sister. She was feeding her, watching over her. It's amazing to see what the generosity of community has brought to the people of the Philippines. It's brought hope, it's brought life, good health, it's brought love. And I'm really excited to see what the future holds for this year's Celebration Generosity.
My name is Brian Hoffmeister, and I am the lead pastor of a New Thing church. We are in the greater Milwaukee area. We planted Lake Point Church in the fall of 2012. This isn't the first time I had tried planting a church. I had done this prior in 2005, but I was really on an island all by myself. No sending church, no network, and although God really had some neat things come out of that effort, we did not end up with a healthy, sustainable church as a result. So I backed out of that. I went back to being an associate pastor and ended up at the Exponential Conference. And this crazy guy named Dave Ferguson keeps getting up there year after year, turning cartwheels over this idea of church planting. And it was getting me excited, and the church that I was a part of excited. And next thing you know, Brook Life Church in Mukwonago, where I was a pastor at that time, we joined a local New Thing hub in Milwaukee. After one of these many gatherings in which we were spending time with New Thing, I distinctly remember turning to Jason Webb, the lead pastor I was working with, and I asked him, when are we going to plant a new church in Milwaukee? It's about time that we really take a lead on something like this. What I was not prepared for was for him to turn around just 1 week later and say, yes, we are ready to plant a church, and I think you're ready to be our church planter, and we want the church plant to be in your hometown. You have 2 weeks to decide. And after those 2 weeks, we said yes. And that's how Lake Point Church was born. So we did plant Lake Point Church, specifically in the city of Muskego, and we quickly became known as the Green Church. We wore these green t-shirts whenever we were out and involved and serving in the community. But I don't think it was the shirts that really stuck out to them, it was the lifestyle. We lived by love, and we lived the way Jesus lived. And I could really say that someone did not have to come to one of our church services to know who God was. We brought the good news of God out to them in their everyday life, in their everyday relationships. And that's really what our church is all about. As a result, we've seen a number of people put their faith in Jesus for the first time, and that's what we're living for. Business professionals who had everything put together until they ran into Jesus and are now humbly bowing before Him. Soccer moms and dads who are tired of maintaining the middle-class suburban lifestyle and want a bigger purpose than that. I had the privilege of baptizing a 70-year-old woman. I mean, just how amazing is that a brand new church is influencing someone who has 7 decades in this life already? One gal we baptized, she was practicing witchcraft just a month before we baptized her. And then I think of another guy who was a construction worker who's still around town. No one believes he is actually in a church, let alone baptized and following Jesus. I think it's important to understand that I would not have planted this second church without New Thing. And it's really the reason that my second church plant is working and the first one didn't, is I have a support network. When Jason Webb looked me in the eye and said, "You are a church planter and you need to do it again," that was a big step. When I received essentially a residency in preparation for that, alongside him and others who had planted churches, that was the step I needed. or just this ongoing care base I have, or whenever our church is facing a big turn, I've got a handful of pastors getting on the phone with me, telling me how they did it when they were there. Put on top of that all the New Thing resources and the trainings and just this ongoing encouragement to continue the vision of church planting of the kingdom of God. This is what the network is doing for me, and I wouldn't be here without it. Our story is just one of the many at New Thing. These stories of church plants are happening here in this country and all across the world as well. So thank you for supporting New Thing. It's through your generosity that you're helping thousands of people find their way back to God.
Our Love Can series has taught us that love is more than a mere feeling or emotion. God's love can change the world. In fact, it already has. The most famous verse in the entire Bible is a verse about God's love. And it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall not perish but have eternal life." Now understand, God has a vision for the world, and He dreams of a world where every person enjoys a close and personal, eternal relationship with Him. He dreams of a world where no need goes unmet, where no injustice prevails, where no person ever has to go it alone. What did this vision lead God to do? It led Him to give. For God so loved the world that He gave. God gave His best. God carried out the most generous act in all of human history. He gave Himself through His Son Jesus, so that His vision for the world could be realized, so that every person could find their way back to Him.
Understand this. God's vision for the world has not changed. Only now He wants to love the world through you and through me. You see, we carry Jesus' mission forward when we too give generously to help people find their way back to God. And here's the thing. This kind of love expressing itself through generosity does more than change the world. It changes me, and it can change you.
Now, you've had the opportunity to learn about the 4 teams and the amazing work that they're doing around the world and in our own backyard. Today, you and I have the opportunity to give generously to one or more or all of these teams. Now, some of you came to community for the first time just a few weeks ago at Show Up Sunday, and we're glad you're here. In fact, we can't think of a better way for you to take the next step in joining us on the Jesus mission than to give generously to ones whose need is so great. Well, what specifically does that look like? John and I had a conversation beforehand, so I know I can speak for both of us and tell you that both of our families will be giving our largest gifts of the year today. And what I want to do is I want to encourage you. In fact, I want to challenge you. Will you do the same? In fact, think about this. What if all of us gave our biggest offering of the year today? I mean, giving and loving like that, it can change the world. And giving generously like that will also change me and change you.
Edgewater, I know you get this. You prove it in the way you love your neighborhood.
Caroline, you've been so faithful for so long. Let's keep it up.
Lincoln Park, what a great first year. Keep giving God your best.
Lincoln Square, God has blessed you in so many ways this year. Thank God by putting Him first.
East Aurora, so proud of what you are doing locally. Today, you can make a difference globally.
And Lamont, you're growing in so many ways. Let's keep growing in our generosity as well.
Montgomery, you know how to be generous in your community. It's time to do it again.
Naperville Downtown, you've led in generosity for many years. This is another opportunity to say, God, we give to you first.
Plainfield, God is moving and blessing you in countless ways. Give Him your best.
And Romeoville, you're passionate about celebrating God in worship. Today, celebrate God in generosity.
Shorewood, what a great example you've been in your giving. Keep on being faithful.
In Yorkville, you have a heart for those 4 teams. This is your opportunity.
Naperville Yellow Box, we are counting on your leadership. Set the pace.
See, love can. God's love can change the world. Let God love the world through us today. It's time to celebrate generosity.